As of recently, there's been a lot of Doom clones that have been released or released into early access. Doom as a game is a very timeless form of gaming, being one of the first to ever really do first-person shooters in gaming history. And to watch how games evolved over the years, this time we come across HyperViolent, the newest Doom clone-based game to hit the market in early access. HyperViolent is a retro shooter in space developed by Terminist Arcade and as well as published by Fulqrum Publishing. The premise of HyperViolent is quite similar to that of Doom, as you play as a soldier or marine and you answer distress call from a nearby mining asteroid, and come to find out it's overran by zombies, some great ancient evil that took a hold of this spaceship and you must take care of it. Thanks to the team over at Terminist for giving me a key to play the early access. Today's episode is about my chapter 1 gameplay, as I spent the past 2 hours trying to see what people can expect from HyperViolent. HyperViolent's gameplay is simple in nature. The game is a first-person retro shooter. Most of the time you will be shooting with many different weapons and some melee options. There are many different types of weapons ranging from handguns, SMGs, to shotguns, to even laser rifles. Players can also dual wield in-game, which you can choose to dual wield a flashlight and a gun, or if the weapon requires 2 hands, like the shotgun per se, you'll be out of a flashlight, and this game can get pretty dark, so definitely keep that in mind when you're on your travels. On top of being a badass, you can jump extremely high, and you can really take a beating as well, as most attacks will not kill you. It takes them a lot to actually deal any physical harm to you, unless you go in some of the big elite-based zombies, which still packs a punch. We also have to worry about the temperature mechanic, which if you're in very hot areas, specifically like boiler rooms, anything that's particularly on fire, or anything that actually generates heat, you have to worry about your temperature going too high. If it does, you will take residual damage if you get too hot, and there's also resource management as well, which is a huge another big thing as well, since bullets are pretty scarce, so choosing between melee or using your weapons will dictate if you survive or not. You can also enhance your weapons with modules throughout the level and give them certain more capacity or more weapon damage as well. HyperViolence content lets you choose between 4 different difficulties, such as casual, normal, brutal, and survival. During early access, you can play 2 levels, which are chapter 1 and chapter 6. The enemies of HyperViolent are essentially zombies who overran the ship you're aboard. There are multiple variants to these zombies. Some of them can shoot the player, and most of them are just regular mobs that rush the player. Like I said, most of my game time actually playing this game was essentially just 2 hours in chapter 1. At first, there's been plenty of times when I thought that the game will be ending, and I'm like, you know what, chapter 1's about to be over. But no, chapter 1's pretty lengthy. Like, I'm still going through it now, probably another hour it should probably be over. But like I said, you only get to choose between chapter 1 or chapter 6. So if I'm not mistaken, this game may, just as a hunch, like I said, I have the early access key, so I don't know on full game relaunch that all the levels got unlocked. That is definitely something to find out in a later date. The overall graphics of HyperViolent are heavily retro inspired. The overall feels gives you a 16-bit Doom style of play and graphics. Even the OST follows suit with some metal and rock or even electronic based music, which gets hyped every time I'm hearing it as I'm traveling and mowing down zombies. Even though HyperViolent isn't early access at this moment, I love the fact that this game is greatly optimized. I have not run into any bugs or lagging, and the game runs buttery smooth. Which brings me to my initial impressions of HyperViolent. Playing through the first chapters, I noticed that there is no mini-map. So definitely paying homage to the olden days of Doom, and most of the time you'll be doing a lot of backtracking. Now that part gave me a lot of reminiscing of Resident Evil, trying to go back and find other locations to be able to so you can continue moving forward. There are different ways of puzzles, and you got to do a lot of reading, checking out the terminals, going from different terminals to see what has a password or not. Like, it gives you that modern, that Resident Evil type feel. Like, it brings me back to Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, 1, you know, the originals, not the remakes. Oh, that counts as 2. But one thing that is also pretty cool, which is a slight smaller mechanic, and it is actually your vision mechanic, right? So as you battle the monsters, you will notice that blood splatters on your visor, or as you take damage, the blood splatter on your visor. So you can actually use the interact button, and you can actually wipe your visor so you can actually be able to see. If it gets too much blood on it, it's going to be very difficult to see, and it's already bad enough the game's dark as hell. HyperViolent is a great nostalgic title if you really love FPS and retro style games. The game is quite gory and the soundtrack is fire, especially when the music changes per situation, really giving you a specific vibe, whether it's fast-paced shootouts with the monsters or if there's a scarier moment and the sound would change to fit a more dreadful tone. The inventory is very minimalistic, but the UI is simple and clean, no pun intended, and very easy to maneuver in. I am overly impressed with how the early access is really polished and it plays so well. And I really highly recommend you guys to go check this game out. It is currently right now $14 on Steam if you want to check out another first-person shooter retro inspired. Then check out this video at the end screen. But as always, it's been your host, KISD here at Chaotic Inc. signing out. Peace.
Manifest, I don't sleep, that's so weak, don't plan to rest. I'm from a hood where you die if you don't pack a vest. No culinary degrees, but whipping crack the best. Chefing, hard times taught lessons. Praying every night to pull up in park Benzes. What's my home is what you call trenches. You wouldn't last a day seeing life through all lenses. It's all tension, no sun, and rain and plenty. Full-time job, still can never make a penny. I ain't rapping for